Welcome to IAF's webinar on the Enhanced Replant program. This one is for Stream 1, or the Tree Fruit Replant. My name is Derek, and I'm a project coordinator with IAF. Before we begin the presentation, I would like to acknowledge that IAF's office is in Victoria, the traditional territory of the Lekwungen First Nations, represented today by the Esquimalt and Songhees Nations. IAF operates across traditional and unceded Indigenous territories throughout British Columbia. ERP is funded by the Government of British Columbia through the Ministry of Agriculture and Food, and is delivered by IAF. I'm joined today by Adrian Arts and Lindsay King, representing the Ministry of Agriculture and Food, who will be assisting me during the Q&A period of the webinar today. Adrian, would you like to introduce yourself briefly?
Thanks, Derek. Good afternoon, folks. Speaking to you today from the traditional unceded territory of the Silk Nation from my base office in Kelowna, BC. I am a manager with the Ministry of Agriculture and Food and the point person for the ministry on this particular program. And I'll turn it over to Lindsay.
Great. Thank you, Adrian. Lindsay, would you like to give a brief introduction?
Yep, thanks, Derek. Hi, Lindsay King, Industry Specialist for Tree Fruit with the Ministry of Agriculture. Nice to see a lot of familiar faces or names on this call. So hope to have a good discussion.
Great, thanks, Lindsay. So with that, we'll just jump right into the agenda for this. We will cover first an overview of the program as a whole. We will then jump into a more detailed overview of just Stream 1, the tree fruit replants. And then we will lastly cover the application process for Stream 1. And like I mentioned before, there will be a Q&A at the end. Please feel free to enter those questions in as they come up. So the Enhanced Replant program will provide support to help wine grape, berry, and tree fruit producers replace existing acreage with climate-resilient varieties that produce in-demand premium fruit. The program objective in this case is to increase the competitiveness and resiliency of the BC agri-food economy in domestic and global markets by providing direct funding support to producers looking to replace damaged, diseased, and low-producing vines, plants, and trees with climate-resilient varieties that again produce in-demand premium fruit. Funding for ERP is available through 4 streams. Please note, ERP has program-wide eligibility criteria, and each funding stream has stream-specific eligibility. We'll go through both of these today for Stream 1. And today we'll focus again on Stream 1. Unfortunately for the further details about Stream 2, 3, and 4 are not today, but they are going to be on a webinar for next week, and links to register are available on our website. So for the details of Stream 1. Stream 1 will fund the replanting of tree fruits. The eligible participants for Stream 1 include the existing cherry producers, existing pomme fruit, including apple and pear producers, existing stone fruit, so apricot, nectarine, peach, plum producers, and existing wine grape producers. And of course, all applicants must be based in British Columbia. It's important to note that replant activities cannot start until after a producer has received funding approval. Under this program, the funding limits are the same for all 4 streams. So if you are applying for Stream 1, the following will apply. Each farm operation can apply for a minimum of 1 continuous acre to a maximum of 20 acres, or 15% of the total perennial food crop farming acreage, whichever is greater. Total funding available for each farm operation over the duration of the program is capped at $500,000. So what about cost share ratios? The cost share ratio depends on whether the applicant has been paid a production insurance plant loss claim or has a pending claim for each of the fields being replanted. And we'll take a look at that right here. So If you're applying to ERP and have not been paid a production insurance plant loss claim, or don't have an active claim pending, the following will apply to you. Plants are purchased from a commercial nursery. My apologies. There we go. Plants purchased from a commercial nursery. Under this program, a commercial nursery would be defined as a professional business that sells finished trees to growers. If you purchase from a commercial nursery, the cost share ratio will be 50% for plants and 50% for one-time royalty or licensing fees. This means that the applicant will pay 50% of the plant and one-time royalty licensing fees, and the program will pay the remaining 50% at the completion of the project. Using plants from a home nursery, which a home nursery is defined as a nursery where producers grow their own plants for their commercial orchards. In these nurseries, rootstock is purchased, planted, and grafted to create finished trees over a 2 to 3 year period. Trees grown in home nurseries are not sold commercially, and growers are expected to pay all applicable royalties on the trees they produce. If you use plants from a home nursery, the cost share ratio will be 100% for rootstock, scion, and one-time royalty licensing fees. This means that the program will cover 100% of the rootstock, scion, and one-time royalty licensing fees at the end or completion of the project. Plants funded through this program must be planted. The plants cannot be resold. Now, if you're applying to ERP and you have been paid a plant loss claim from January 1st, 2023 onwards, or you have an active plant loss claim under consideration, the following will apply to you. In this case, again, with the commercial nursery, the definition remains the same. It's a professional business that sells finished trees to growers. If you purchase from a commercial nursery, the cost shared ratio would be 25% in this case for plants and one-time royalty or licensing fees. This means, again, that the program will cover 25% cost for the plants and one-time royalty licensing fees at 25% as well. But the applicant in this case will cover the remaining 75% of the project costs. For those using a home nursery, and again, I won't go over the definition for this again, but if you use plants from a home nursery, the cost share ratio would be 25% for the rootstock, scion, and one-time royalty or licensing fees. This means, again, that the program will cover 25%, whereas the applicant will cover 75%. And again, you cannot resell trees that are funded through this program from a home nursery. Now we'll jump over to some general eligibility criteria. All applicants must meet program-wide eligibility and stream-specific eligibility. To be considered eligible for this program, you must be the owner or leasee of the land. Indicate if you have been paid a production insurance plant loss claim, or if you have one in progress. Demonstrate financial viability during the project and post completion of the project. Be in good standing with the councils identified by the corresponding industry association, and maintain the property as a commercial operation for at least 4 years after replanting. Ineligible applicants for the enhanced replant program will include annual crop producers, forage producers, non-commercial producers, and farmland outside of British Columbia, sectors that do not have an opportunity assessment completed and pre-approved by the Ministry of Agriculture and Food. This aspect does not necessarily apply to you as applicants, more so for commodities. Producers that do not meet the funding stream specific criteria, this is what we're going to cover next, and as well applicants with an active Perennial Crop Renewal Program project. So if you have an active Perennial Crop Renewal project occurring right now or during the application process, you will not be eligible for funding from the Enhanced Replant Program. Once your project is complete, you are eligible as long as you are not applying for funding for the same project that was completed under the Perennial Crop Renewal Program. We'll jump over into the eligible activities. The first one is plant costs, of course. So this eligible provided the plant intake or the planting takes place after the application is approved and plants have not been funded through other programs. As mentioned a few slides ago, when we were talking about the cost shared ratios, funding will be dependent on whether you have a nursery stock or home nursery stock. So commercial nursery or home nursery. Another eligible criteria is planting multiple varieties of the same commodity on one continuous acre. For example, planting one continuous acre of apple trees, but using more than one variety of apples. So this excludes interplanting, planting young plants between existing plants in the row. Please note that the following project requirements: the replant site must be in British Columbia. Each field being replanted must cover a minimum of one continuous acre. The field must be a single uninterrupted block. Based on current projections, the replant site is commercially viable. So this will create a positive return at full production. A form will be provided at the time of application to confirm this. It's a very easy template. You simply just type in the costs and expected revenues. For each replanted site, applicants must be a licensed water user, be within an irrigation district, or have submitted a water license application prior to applying. For audited applications, they must show proof of this, and we will go over the audited aspect later on. Irrigation systems must be installed at planting times. However, for wine grape growers on Vancouver Island, they're exempted in this case. However, we are doing trees here. So ineligible activities. Multiple planted areas that collectively equal 1 acre. So as I was mentioning, it must be one continuous acre as a minimum. New plantings, so this includes farm expansions and the establishment of crops on bare land or land previously utilized for non-perennial crops or non-food perennial crops. Home nurseries, the cost of plants such as maintenance costs or growing costs are not included. Goods and services tax, in-kind expenses, taxes and duties or shipping costs are also excluded. Other planting or removal costs, but not limited to the rental of equipment, purchase of posts and wire, or labor. Interplanting in existing orchards or vineyards, so planting young plants between existing plants. Ongoing annual royalty payments, so per acre, per linear foot, or per fruit sold type of royalty. Ineligible commodity-specific criteria as outlined in the sector-specific planting or removal guidelines. And so we will talk about this coming up. And I'll take this point just as a reminder, if you do have any questions, please feel free to submit them into the Q&A box and we will answer them at the end of the presentation. So now that we've looked at the program-wide eligibility criteria, let's talk about the stream-specific eligibility for Stream 1. We'll start by looking at the cherry replant projects, then palm fruits, and then finally stone fruits. So for the cherries, eligible applicants include existing tree fruit or wine grape producers, replacing existing acreage, with new cherry orchards. Including in this is for all non-self-fertile varieties of cherries, applicants must have a pollinizer plan, indicate the pollinizer varieties being planted, and the proposed hive rentals. Applicants must have a soil nutrient test done from the field site within the last 3 years, and this applies to each field being replanted, or each location being replanted. The applicant must show proof of payment of royalties to Summerland Varieties Corporation for all orchard trees being replanted where applicable. So if the variety you are planting has a royalty payment needed, we will ask for proof of this. And please be aware that if you are not planting a SVC variety, this will not apply to you. It is only for those that require a royalty. And then for cherry replant projects, again, the planting of the varieties Lambert, Bing, and Van is not widely recommended, but require justification found in the marketing and sales section of your business plan before being approved for replanting funding. So although it is not immediately ruled out as ineligible, additional justification is required. This also could risk the application not being funded due to other varieties or applications being prioritized. The project would also have to be a standard planting density of 340 to 450 plants per acre. If the planting exceeds 340 to 450 plants per acre, then again, verification from accredited professional may be required from the applicant to verify the planting density and horticultural practices proposed by the producer. So again, if you are over or under this density, with justification, it can still be accepted. Moving on to the eligibility criteria for palm fruit replant projects. Eligible applicants include being a tree fruit or wine grape producer again, replacing again existing acreage, not new acreage, with apple or pear orchards. The applicant must have a pollination plan, indicate the pollinizer varieties being planted and the proposed hive rentals. Applicant must have a soil nutrient test from the planting sites within the last 3 years. And lastly, the applicant must show proof of payment for Summerland Varieties Corporation royalties where applicable. Planting of the varieties Spartan Red Delicious, low color strains of Gala or Royal Gala, low color strains of Macintosh are also not widely recommended and will require justification. If your application includes Spartan, Red Delicious, or low color strains of Gala, such as Royal Gala, and low color strains of Macintosh, additional time for adjudication may be required. This could again risk the application not being funded due to other varieties being prioritized. The standard planting density for apples in this program is going to be 1,800 to 2,500 plants per acre, whereas pears will be 340 to 450 plants per acre. If the apple tree planting exceeds 1,800 to 2,500, again, this will be considered high density, and verification from an accredited professional may be required to verify that the proper horticultural practices are in line with industry expectations. Same rule goes with the pear tree along their planting density of 340 to 450. Finally, we'll look at the criteria for stone fruit. The eligible applicants again will be tree fruit or wine grape producers replacing existing acreage with new apricot, nectarine, peach, or plum orchards. The applicant must have a pollination plan and indicate the proposed number of hive rentals. Applicant must also have, again, the soil nutrient test from the field site within the last 3 years for each planting site. And then if applicable, the same rules for royalties and proof of payment for a Summerland Variety Corporation applies here. Planting density. So the standard planting density for stone fruit will be 340 to 450 plants per acre. If your planting exceeds these ranges, then a verification from the accredited professional may be required from the applicant again, just to ensure horticultural practices are being followed. So that wraps up the eligibility section. And so we're going to jump into application processes, as well as the timeline of your project. Applicants can apply to ERP through the IAF client portal. Links to the portal are provided throughout our website, and can also be found on the slide here at the bottom. To find the application, log into your account and select the Funding Opportunities tab, as you can see here. Please, if you do not already have your organization registered with IAF, please complete that process as soon as you can. It takes approximately 2 business days to be approved, and it's better to have it done now before the submission window opens. Once on this page, however, you can scroll down to find the application button for the Enhanced Replant Program. This will be separated by stream, so please ensure you click the right stream, in this case, stream 1. Once you have drafted and saved an application, it will appear under the applications draft application section here with the blue square. Applications for stream 1 are open for drafting. Applicants have the chance to draft their application prior to submissions opening. Make sure you save your application when working on it in the IAF client portal so it's ready for when the application submissions open. I also suggest as soon as you start an application, hit that save button because you can go back to it whenever you want following that. Application submissions open on Tuesday, November 26th at 9 a.m. Pacific time, and close on Thursday, December 3rd at 4 p.m. Projects will commence upon approval following a signed contribution agreement, and that will also be covered in just 2 more slides, I believe. All projects must be completed within 24 months of the project start date. Each of these applications will be scored. Unlike other programs that IAF may run, where it is done by first come, first serve, we will be scoring these applications. Some of the criteria that we are using is whether or not you have a confirmed plant order for all the fields at the time of applying, whether you're enrolled in production insurance, whether you're enrolled in agri-stability, or have vertical integration, which makes you ineligible for agri-stability, a current environmental farm plan, or if you're in the process of renewing or applying for one. And when we talk about in the process here, we mean that an application has been submitted to renew or to have one conducted. In the process of does not include a future plan to make that application. A business plan that meets ministry requirements and was developed within the last 5 years is also one of the criteria for scoring. And lastly, that the fields being replanted are cover cropped or left fallow for the last 12 months or 12 months prior to planting. In the last couple of slides of the presentation, before we get to the question and answers, I just want to talk briefly about the application review process and what the next steps are if your project is approved. So for the project lifecycle, there are 3 main points of decision. So upon the successful completion of a review by IAF staff, 10% of the applications will be selected for further review and audit. This audit will involve a secondary review of applications for eligibility and validation of technical information by an accredited professional. Additional information may be requested from the applicant before it is considered for funding further. The second spot will be field inspections being conducted for a minimum of 25% of completed projects by a qualified professional, scheduling an on-site visit with the producer. Again, this is after the completion of the project. And then the final report will be due 2 weeks following the end of your project. Project reports will also be completed within the IAF client portal. And if you have any previous projects with us, this process will be nearly identical. And so lastly, we have the contribution agreement and any project changes that might arise. So upon approval, all applicants will sign a contribution agreement that outlines the funding amounts and funding conditions. It is imperative that everybody reads this document fully, as your final funding amounts are listed here, and the responsibilities of IAF, including the responsibilities of you, the applicant. Project changes are only granted in extenuating circumstances. These changes may include budget changes. So if costs increase or decrease, activity changes within the 24-month restriction. So if project timelines need to be adjusted within those 24 months. If your project lead or designated officer changes, so if you have a change in employment or someone else will be taking over, please let us know as soon as possible and we will make those changes. Reporting deadline extensions. So if you have a report due, but you're not actually in the country, or other issue has come up, you can let us know within a reasonable time frame and we can adjust that reporting date for you. But again, it's very important to let us know as soon as possible. So with that, thank you for bearing with me while we went through that presentation. We're going to move on to the question and answer section. But as a reminder, please use the Q&A function through the Zoom to submit your questions. Please don't provide any identifiable information when you're submitting your questions. My teammates will be sending me questions that have been put in, and I will read them aloud fully and then answer so you know who I'm answering to. If we're unable to answer or reach your question within the allotted time, we will do our best to follow up by email and update the FAQ section on our program's website. If you have a specific question, please use the email listed on the slide here, the erp@iafbc.ca, and we will respond to you as soon as we can. And the other option is to book a consultation call with this link here. As well, you can book it based on our website. So I think we will jump over and see if we can answer some questions for you. Just going to move a couple things around here on my screen. Okay, so I have one question here. Can I apply to more than one funding stream? So you can apply to more than one funding stream. However, each farm operation is permitted to submit only one application per fiscal year or intake. So per application intake is one stream, but if you were to apply again in another intake or another fiscal year, you would be able to apply to another stream. Let's see here. Am I able to replant partial fields? Yes, you can replant partial fields as long as it meets that minimum one continuous acre. As a reminder, interplanting is not eligible. Just as an example here, if a farmer is replanting, say, 2 fields totaling 2.5 acres, and field 1 is 2 acres, but field 2 is only a 1/2 acre, the only field 1 would qualify here because it meets that minimum 1 acre. However, if the farmer is planting 2 fields, so 2.5 acres, but both fields meet that 1 acre minimum of continuous acreage, then both fields are eligible. Okay. Got another one here. I'm a wine grape grower. Can I apply to plant tree fruits? Yes, you are eligible to plant with tree fruits as a wine grape grower. You can plant with cherries, new palm fruit, or stone fruit. Okay, I have another one here. Regarding stone fruit commodities, Whether or not we can mix commodities within one acreage, yes, as long as you meet the minimum 1 acre, you can mix peaches, nectarines, plums, and apricots together. Is the acreage limit per year or for the duration of the program? The acreage limit is for the duration of the program. As a reminder, the maximum acreage you can apply for is 20 acres or 15% of the existing acreage, whichever is greater. So if you are planting or farm perennial food crops in BC on extremely large acreages, such as, to throw a number out there, 200 acres, in that case, you would go to the 15% of the existing acreage because that would be greater than 20 acres. What if you don't have a soil sample test done before the application due date? So we suggest that everyone has their soil test done at the time of application, because this is going to be a question in your application. However, if you are waiting for the results of your soil test to be completed, it must be completed before our review starts, which we can't give you a specific timeline on that. So we will stick with the have your soil test done at time of planting. Which varieties of apples are being prioritized? So while there isn't an official list necessarily of varieties being prioritized or A-list options, planting the varieties Spartan, Red Delicious, low color strains of Gala, and low color strains of Macintosh is not widely recommended. And justification must be found in the marketing and sales section of your business plan. I will maybe open this one up to Lindsay or Adrian if you have varieties that are being prioritized. But
yeah, thanks, Derek. We are not prioritizing any varieties. We recommend that you work with your marketer to select a profitable variety. The ones that we have not recommended are just based on historical returns and current returns. But if you provide good justification that you can get sufficient returns or that it's suitable for your site, there will be a space for you to put that in. And I think I saw a question about someone asking about climate resilient varieties, and feel free to give me a call to chat more about that.
Great. Thank you, Lindsay.
Yeah, maybe I'll put my contact information in the chat.
Fantastic. I have one more question here. Do you need a business plan? What if you don't have one made? Can you make it after submitting your application? So you will need a business plan for your application based on prioritization criteria. Without having one completed at the time of application, I believe there is a question in the application that asks, have you completed a business plan? Which you have to say either yes or no. There is also, if you are selected for an audit, we will request a copy of your business plan. Without having one in your application, this will affect the outcome. Should you be either having not completed one or not providing one once audited. And just for some clarification on production insurance, if you have production insurance claim on one block that is being replanted, but not another block, the change in funding ratios only apply to the block that has the claim. So it will not automatically make your entire application go down to 25%. It only affects the block that has the active claim. I kind of expected there to be a few for this one. I've had a lot of consult calls coming in, which have been great. Maybe we'll use this lull as a reminder that you can use the link on the screen here. And then we will be happy to have a 10-15 minute time that is exclusively just for you and your application. These calls are great if you have some concerns or troubles completing the application, you want some further clarity on whether you should upload certain documents or not. It just helps you get through and not have to wait on the phone with us at all and get transferred to the right person. If we applied for the Perennial Replant Program for pomme fruits, but would like to apply to the ERP program for stone fruits, would that be eligible? I would have to probably ask a clarifying question on this, is whether or not that application or project is still ongoing with the Perennial Crop Renewal Program. Changing the variety, I would expect, would still create an ineligibility. Adrian, would you like to confirm that as long as there is an application or project ongoing in PCRP, there is a general ineligibility for ERP?
Based on the way you've worded that, yes. So if you have a current PCRP application, so whether that is removal or replant, until that is complete, you would not be eligible to apply for the ERP this year. So hopefully if folks do have an open PCRP application, they'll get that wrapped up as quick as possible, and then they would be eligible for next year.
Great, thank you. So when completing the application, should the contribution margin template at full production sheet be completed for each commodity type, or is this an average across all commodities to be replanted? I just had an email today about that. So the contribution margin template is for the per application. If you are submitting, and I just might have to ask for clarity on the commodities, if you're submitting for stone fruits, but you're going to be entering in apricots, plums, peaches, multiple, we should be okay with just the single contribution margin template with the averages over that. However, if you're applying for pomme fruits, cherries, and stone fruits, it would be best to have those separated. That way we can, at IAF, better differentiate and have more accurate numbers, especially in our communication with the accredited professionals and AF, or Agriculture, Ministry of Agriculture and Food. Can I plant a field that is already empty, or is this just for people who are replacing an existing crop? So this is a replant program. If you are planting a field that is empty, a bare field, that will not be eligible for funding. It must be in a location that is or was in recent use, either as in one of the commodity types that we've listed as eligible. So if you are planting apples, it must be replanting a crop, a perennial food crop that was already there. This would also, maybe I'll add some clarity as well. If you are say a tree fruit producer and you want to expand your acreage, that will not be eligible. It is only the existing acreage. This program is not meant to expand your existing land or production. Okay, another one here. What if you have a plant loss claim, but it's partial and doesn't cover the whole orchard? Maybe 100 trees per acre, maybe 100 trees per acre are replanting according to the production insurance. Will I still receive 50% since it's not the entire orchard? This one, I might ask Adrian if you want to jump in on this, since you helped out previously with the last production insurance. So if you have a plant loss claim that is only partially applying to a block, will the whole block still go down to 50%? Actually, it'd be 25%.
We're working on that one, Derek. So I think that's going to need to be a follow-up question. But so just for clarification on that as well, the 25% is the block that is damaged for production insurance, so existing claim. So it wouldn't be your entire, if you have 3 blocks side by side and only 1 block's been impacted, it would be your impacted block as you noted previously. So it's, as you discussed in the last question, it's the particular block that has the plant loss claim currently on it.
Great. And so IAF will list this one down as one to follow up on. Depending on the response to this, we'll put the answer on our FAQ section. And if we could also, team, maybe just note the email for this question so we can send a direct response as well. Okay. Where can I receive information about climate-resistant varieties? This one might be a good option to bring Lindsay back into it. I know IAF does not have a list or document, but maybe you're able just to provide some general advice.
Yeah, sure. That's a tricky one. It depends on where you are and a few other factors. So best would be just to send me an email. I tried to reply in the Q&A, but my email is lindsay.king@gov.bc.ca, and I'd be happy to chat with you about it.
Great, thank you. We are slowly approaching the end of the time limit we have here. So if you still have more questions that you are humming and hawing over whether or not to enter, please feel free to throw them into the group. Here we go. So if I have a completed business plan, do I need to submit with the application or just submit if audited? So you do not have to submit with the initial application, but if you are selected for an audit, we will require this. Now, it is listed as an optional document in the application prior to audit decision. So if you have it and are willing to share it immediately, when you or if you are selected later for an audit, there will be less work for you to do regarding application adjustments or more documents to dig up at a later date. Okay, so we will have that as the last question. Thank you, everybody, for taking the time out of your day or out of your lunchtime even to be with us here for the webinar. Any application or any questions that were not answered, we will follow up on either via email or adding it into the FAQs on our website. Please note that there's an FAQ section for the general enhanced replant program page. There's also an FAQ for the stream specific replant page. So stream 1 in this case. Thank you very much for coming and best of luck on the application. Please feel free to reach out to us. We are happy to help at IAF to make sure that your application goes through as smoothly as possible. Thank you.